This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. Today we have Nolan Del Campo and Harriette Sucher with us. I'm going to welcome them to the show.
Good morning, Nanette.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
How you guys doing? Everybody staying warm?
It's a little, it's fall here, so it's probably going to be 75 today. So it's warm here, but it's freezing in the morning, like 30.
How are you out there on the road, Nolan?
Oh, it's beautiful.
I think we're supposed to be at 80 today, right?
Really? Yeah, it's going to be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I hope so. Yeah. Today I'm going to actually start with something that Juan, and Juan, are you there? You're going to join us right now, aren't you? Hello.
Yeah,
Maybe
can you hear me okay?
Sure
I can hear you. Oh, there you go. Hi, Juan.
Scared me there for a second. I thought I lost everybody. Okay.
So our additional voice, you're what, my podcast engineer? Is that the proper technical term for you?
Engineer, yes.
Engineer. Podcast engineer. What did I call you?
That would be correct.
I did it right. Oh, sweet. Anyways, last week after we ended our episode, Juan had told me about something called freaking. And of course, everybody has their own idea of what freaking means, but it was an issue or a very interesting topic. And you had indicated that was some type of way to make a free phone call, correct, Juan?
That would be correct. Yeah, back then. Not anymore.
In the 60s. Right? I know, you keep reminding me of that. I want to get a whistle and I want to try it, okay?
I mean, if you can find a working public phone, then maybe you can still get away with it. Who knows?
You know, there is still, I don't know if it's working. Did we check to see if that payphone was working out there at Lake Herman Road, Harriette?
I don't, that would be more like our competitors' side of what they would do, but there was a lot of things going on, so it's
no, I meant when we were out there, we saw the phone booth at Lake Herman Road at the visitor area to Lake Herman. Remember the phone booth? It still had an actual phone booth in it.
I think that was with you and Dennis, because I don't
no, Dennis never went out there with me.
Sandy Beth. Anyways, all I know is it's supposed to still be there.
It is, really, and I might have to go try it and see if I can't make me some free phone calls.
We got some things to do now on the to-do list. Just wait until I tell you about why Mount Diablo. That's coming up.
Okay.
Okay.
So on the freaking side of things, Juan had sent me a article from Encyclopedia Britannica, and in that I found that the freaking was also known as phone freaking, fraudulent manipulation of telephone signaling in order to make free phone calls. And the reason why I got interested in this is because we know that the Zodiac was making phone calls. Now, did he pay for these phone calls? This is something I've often now wondered since Juan has, given me this information. This sounds like something that would be right up Jack's alley. It's basically hacking the phone system in order to make free long distance phone calls. So that's what made me start to think about all the payphone booths that he had used and whether or not he was actively paying to make those calls. Now, I would think back then a 911 call would probably be free, wouldn't you, Juan?
You mean in the early 90s?
I don't think they had 911 back then.
Not in 1970, but they had ways to make emergency calls, but
Yeah.
So you would have to actually know the police department's phone number to call them,
I
or
think
you would just ask the operator.
Operator. Yeah,
Operator.
0 for the operator.
But you can
Gotcha.
dial 411 out here in San Francisco, New York. That's what I was surprised that it goes back to all the way 1930. Yeah, you would dial 411 or the operator. Hey, I need help here. What's the number?
Okay. So I'm just trying to, I mean, I know that he also called victims' family members. So again, you would probably 411 or dial 0 for the operator. And then they would patch you through, but I would think you would have to pay for that or collect the phone number.
Freaking actually bypassed that.
So you would need to know the number then, right?
Because the way that it worked is that the frequency they used to transfer you over, that was used by the operator. So by you creating that frequency, you would bypass the operator and make the phone call yourself.
Oh, okay.
So that's right up Jack's alley.
Right.
I think so.
So basically what it says is by emulating those tones, freaks could make phone calls around the world. Freaking largely ended in 1983 when telephone lines were upgraded to the Common Channel Interoffice Signaling, which is CCIS, which separated signaling from the voice line. The term freak comes from a combination of words phone, freak, and freak, or free and freak. Phone freaking first began in the 1960s when people discovered that various whistles could recreate the 2600 megahertz pitch of the phone routing signal. Some people could whistle in a perfect 2600 megahertz pitch, most notably a blind man. And I guess sound and tone would be, a heightened experience for them. It says John Draper, a friend of Ingresia, discovered that a whistle distributed as a prize in a Captain Crunch cereal admitted, this is great, you guys, emitted a perfect 2600 megahertz pitch, thus earning him the moniker Captain Crunch. As freaking evolved, the use of what is known as a blue box or MFR came the most common way of manipulating the phone signal. Blue boxes were self-constructed transmitters that gave the users access to the same 12 tones used by phone operators as described in the Bell System Technical Journal in 1954 and 1960. Early freakers were known to examine dumpsters outside phone company offices and other locations in order to find discarded manuals and equipment. Now, it got really interesting as it began to talk about things like freaking entered the popular imagination in October 1971 when Esquire featured the story The Secrets of the Little Blue Box by Ron Rosenbaum. The practice became popular on university campuses, prompting future Apple Inc. founders Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak to make blue boxes long before they built their first Macintosh. During the 1970s, freaking became associated with political radicalism. Abby Hoffman, leader of the Youth International Party, became interested in freaking as a means of resisting the monopoly of American Telephone and Telegraph, which is now known as AT&T. In 1971, Hoffman and a freaker known as Al Bell began publishing a newsletter called Party Line, which described ways of subverting telephone lines for their own uses. In 1973, Party Line became known as TAP, standing for Technological Assistance Program. Hoffman advocated liberating the telephone lines because he believed that taking control of the communication system would be a crucial action for mass revolt. By the mid-1970s, AT&T had revealed that it had lost approximately $30 million per year to telephone fraud, including freaking. Now, I want to talk about that number. 30 million per year to this freaking or this hacking of the phone lines. What does that say about how much they're really making? Because I don't know anybody who knew any. I mean, Juan was the first person I've ever heard about this from, and I came from the era of telephone booths. So obviously it's not common knowledge by everybody, but if they've lost 30 million just due to it, then I can't imagine what they actually made. Let's see. In 1983, telephone lines were upgraded to CCIS to separate signaling from the voice line, effectively ending the freaking. Although freaking largely died out, the spirit of freaking infused computer hacking. So many freakers became hackers when personal computers and modems became available during the early 1980s and thus perpetuated their anti-bureaucratic sentiments and belief that lines of communication should be free. Well, how do you guys feel about that?
With them.
Right? I mean, shouldn't we be able to reach out and talk to anybody regardless, or have them open lines of communication that the government is so, I mean, we've heard about the telegraph, we've heard about the teletype, we've heard about the ham radio, we've heard about all these different ways that communication has been made free to them. Why shouldn't we have that same capability?
Reach out and touch someone was one of the it was one of the catchphrases. Reach out and touch someone
for a nice penny and 30 million.
Yeah.
Well, that was awesome, Juan. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that? Do you know much about the hacking, like what they were talking about as it pertained to the computers and the modems?
Yeah, the hacking is more so like to have a line of communication across the world through a chat line instead of the phone.
Oh, right. I suppose like WhatsApp or Signal or some of those that you can actually reach out and make phone calls on that or like FaceTime, right?
This was back when, before all of that, before the apps and all that came through. So that was more like online chat rooms. Think more of like Reddit.
I lost you. All right, moving on.
Putting like the dark rooms.
Freaking, you guys. Everybody's hacking something. Let's go ahead and put up the PowerPoint presentation. At this point, we're going to climb right back into the solves with Harriette. You had sent me over an additional My Name Is solve that you found. Now, this one was from the actual letter, correct?
Yes. And this is
Have I lost everybody's sound?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I can't hear you. I can't hear anybody.
You can't hear anybody?
I hear Harriette and you.
Okay. Come on now. The ghosts are acting up again.
Juan?
We can hear you.
We can hear you, Nanette. Just go for it.
I didn't touch it.
Yeah, maybe she needs to check her volume.
Hello.
I can hear Nolan. I can hear Juan.
I can hear everybody.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on. I hear nothing from you guys. I'm not getting.
Oh my God.
Well, let's just go forward. Juan, tell her to go forward. Or she can't hear you either, huh? Maybe you could chat with her and say, just move forward. Because we can hear her.
Girl.
Well, I can go ahead and.
Okay, no. I got you guys. Something's going on with my headset. Sorry, Juan, I got you. I just had to take my headset off.
Okay.
Something's going on there. All right, guys, we're back.
Yeah, I said the ghosts are acting up again.
All right, so back to what I was saying, Harriette. This is an additional solve to the My Name Is cipher, and you had done a stenographic solve to this, correct?
I believe so, and then adding the code, the AEN, and all this. You know what Dennis told me that Jack told him, that it says Jack, my name Jack. So I mixed that all in, and
this is the message you got. Can you read that for us?
Yeah. Well, this is this actually goes after the envelope. I think I'm going to be done with the envelope by Monday. But anyways, he's saying, so make sure as soon as possible to answer question, because Alcoholics Anonymous located UC Davis doctors, MD doctors, require actual sequence, A, LSD, the Mickeyfin, to put something in a particular drink, B, Lick Washington peyote stamp. It's a 2-cent stamp, now extremely rare, then commonplace. Anyways, and UCD has the CIA lysergic acid diethylamide -100. I'll explain why I was able to pick that number. Anyways, if post editor, he's asking, if post editor Sun, that's New York Post, in New York City, RNC, that's Republican National Committee guy, Prescott Bush, Mrs. Prescott, Dorothy, or Jerry McCabe, which was Kennedy's and other people's Navy aide, Antidote peyote on that stamp. I am nominatio, a protected name. That means government, everything. Nolan can chime in why that would mean something. Anyways, at Alcoholics Anonymous, me, Zodiac Jack. He's trying to get the cure. He's trying to get off MK Ultra and all this stuff that they're programmed to do. So he's trying to get cured himself. And then he's going to try to stop everything else that he's saying is going to happen in the future.
So this could be the reason for the outbreak of the mescaline and the peyote that we're seeing during this time in the 1970s, is that they're using it in a way to help people to get off the LSD or the acid from the MK Ultra program.
I'm guessing that's part of it. So this is a unique type of LSD government version. And I'm thinking I'm going to find out that there's going to be a unique type of peyote that goes back decades on this stamp that actually comes from between 1908 to like 1947. And it was still in use. From a vending machine, though, not from the United States Postal Service, but printed by Bureau of Printing and Engraving. So
normal LSD is LSD 25. You said this was LSD 100? I've never heard of that.
Well, this is that's why I said it can't be LSD minus one, like 011 or 001, because all I was left with was those three numbers. 100. So okay. This would be since CIA came out after the 1930s. This is their version. There's supposed to be different versions, different numbers. I don't know. I'm not CIA. I'm not MK Ultra. I'm not the federal government and other governments. Soviet, all kinds of things are coming out in these that
What does the number indicate, Nolan? Do you know that?
I don't know what the 100 means. Yeah.
It's a specific recipe.
25, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, a way to identify.
One quick point about CIA, MK Ultra, and programs like that. A lot of times the leaders, the presidents and the hierarchy, State Department and whatnot, were unaware of these programs that were going on. Like domestic surveillance, the LSD experiments, the mind control experiments. The government, the nominal government didn't really know what the heck was going on when the CIA was doing this stuff.
Well, and that brings me to a really great point, because I told Harriette, we spoke yesterday about this. I wanted her to give me kind of a brief statement as to what she believed Jack was and what he was involved with. And literally, she has indicated, and I'm going to let you take this here in a second, but you believe the Twin Towers and building number 7, which housed both the Treasury and the CIA, were under plans for more than decades in order to destroy it so that they could cover up all of the information in these documents that were, I think it was Helms. Was it Helms that wanted all the MK Ultra stuff destroyed?
Yes, do I have that? He attempted to destroy most of it, but there was some that he didn't get to, and maybe he just didn't know where it was, or I don't know what happened, but he tried to get to
Harriette has actually come up with a solve that indicates how those additional documents came about, which we're going to get to. But Harriette, just give us a brief overview of what you think Jack, who he was and what he was involved with. And then we can tie that back to this story.
He's definitely MK Ultra CIA. And when I was seeing the solves surfacing the last couple of weeks, I had to verify. I had to look it up very quickly. Did they start planning the World Trade Center in the late 1940s? Yes, you can look it up. You can find out. They planned it in the late 1940s. That's the beginning of our CIA. So the gist of it is he's involved with some incredible, very dark, and he even says evil plans and programs. And they programmed him. They Mickey Finned him with the LSD, and they also did the same to Frank Olson. And Frank Olson, apparently, according to many, we're going to see some of the solves today, I think. Anyways, he's saying Frank Olson copied all these files starting from I believe the 1930s in the OSS into the CIA. And some people found out And they argued on November 28, 1953. Jack is saying repetitively he saw Frank Olson go out the window.
So, yeah, he was thrown out the window. They murdered him. First, they ruined his mind with LSD, and then they killed him.
Right.
Because he knew too much.
They probably had to get the LSD into him so that they could use that as the reasoning for why he would have freaked out and jumped on his own. But Harriette, like she said, is coming up with solves that indicate Jack watched. It was Gottlieb and White.
Yeah, and he's saying things like shitty thing to do or what a shitty thing to do. And then now he's in this, for some reason, he's having, I believe, tons of flashbacks. And he keeps seeing Frank going out the window.
So in 67, when the so-called MK Ultra program ended, and we say so-called because I think they just flipped it into another program, gave it a new name. Richard Helms, actually, he was
head of the CIA or... Yeah, I think he was just become head of it at that point. Yes.
Okay. And he ordered all the documents in MK Ultra destroyed, and 30,000 were supposedly misfiled in another location that he didn't catch, and that then surfaced in the 70s to obviously out the CIA on these programs and what it was that they were doing. And ultimately speaking, it had always been my assertion that building number 7, which hadn't been touched by any type of aircraft or otherwise, had been imploded because the CIA and the Treasury, both inside the same building, were looking to destroy anything that could hold them culpable for these type of acts. But I was more on the side of the missing $270 trillion from the Treasury in regards to our Social Security that Bush was being hammered down on for. Now, if the CIA is holding or residing with the Treasury, then I can see how Jack would be both that Treasury goon that you talked about, Harriette, and the CIA at the same time. And there's only one way to get rid of information, and I think they knew this, and that was to destroy it all. You couldn't simply erase things.
I've got a side point. There's a really good book. It's called A Terrible Mistake. It's the story of Frank Olson, and it's also about the history of LSD and the history of the CIA's secret programs like Artichoke and Bluebird and MK Ultra and all that. And it goes from before his death to after his death, all the way up until like the 90s. So it's a great book. It's called A Terrible Mistake.
Wow.
Yeah. So go ahead and say it.
Oh, I was going to say one thing. What I'm seeing, and people are going to say, how to say that? I'm seeing many times now that Jack is, again, seeing him going out the window. He's knowing something about World Trade Center, all this stuff, pre-programmed, pre-planned. I'm going to say that it's Frank Olson was actually the first person out the World Trade Center window. He must have knew that this was coming too. And they just pushed him out the window. So, and then also
they threw him out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so in the little list letter, you're going to find out some things. I don't know if we're covering that today.
Yeah, we're going to get onto that. So let's just see if we can cover whatever else we had in here. So Alcoholics Anonymous was also interesting to me because Jack carried around the Serenity Prayer in his back pocket kind of thing. I know that he became baptized in 1980, so he had kind of sobered up and tried to go on a straight life. And I think that you've also indicated that by that time, he is really trying to out everybody in regards to this. So he might have had his own come to Jesus meeting.
Well, he was pre-programmed to do all these things. And then there's other people programmed. That's what I'm seeing, that there's a lot of people programmed to do this.
Well, and this is kind of your workup on it. So it makes account for every single symbol or letter that's on this particular communication. So this breaks it down, shows you number by letter, what it was used to then anagram that message out. Now, we also had the button letter. So we're just really kind of picking up where we left off from the last couple weeks in regards to the letters that we've gone over. Can you read this button letter solve to us?
Yeah, and so if the Hearst family is listening, apparently Jack was very chummy with Randolph. AH.
I've said this whole time. I'm not surprised your message.
But he's saying Randolph asshole. You know, he's trying. It's appearing to me that these were supposed to be private coded messages because he's trying to get off of MK Ultra, everything. So I'll read it. Here we go.
Hold on 1 second, because I want people to understand before you start reading this. You've discovered that you believe that these communications have been falsely portrayed at the wrong dates. So while this letter was purported to the public to have been written on June 26th of 1970, you're actually finding that they were in the 1974 era versus the 1970, and that they have just come back at some point in time and given us these false dates or made up envelopes with postmarks and things like that in order to deter us from the actual timeline of when this stuff was occurring, correct?
I believe something like that. This looks like these are facsimiles. Sorry, older versions of the machines, which only the wealthy, the military governments then had the ability to do. So he's saying that. So when you see this, even online, all you're seeing is copies of what is said to be original scans. So scans are, telegraph or telephone or whatever. Those are scans sent on a wire. So that's what I'm seeing here. So let me read this. It's actually dated. It's actually dated August 15th, 1974, a.m. This time is for the morning. Some other times it's going to be after midnight, the Operation Midnight. Anyways, it says AM morning facsimile to Randolph asshole. Sorry, guys. Anyways, I did try RN, which is Richard Nixon. Fact, man don't got any. President Richard Nixon resigned August 8, 1974. In spring, I sent 11 facsimiles and circa the date of 420, but this is 4/20/74. Zodiac 13 cipher has my confidential underlined CIA nominatio regarding where is remedy. So he's mad. Tattletale Frank Olson, sorry, print San Francisco and New York files. Pause. Contact me on mission location on Phillips 66 map, dark room in the 280-101 area. Pause. I need Cincinnati Shimak perforations, Franklin, Washington series, U.S. Scott number 322, printed by the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. Exclamation mark. Did Senator Prescott Bush, Chip Bolin, save any 2-cent unique iCold stamps? He's question mark. Do you have any? Alcoholics Anonymous phrase plus the iCold LSD drug is the 999. The remedy. It's 999 is reverse of 666, which is evil. 999, it's reversing it. Anyways, and then he says to repeat, UPI, which is United Press International asshole. My nominatio is in Zodiac 13 cipher. Contact me at the area on the latitude, longitude, SF Bay Area map, the 280-101 area, Northeast San Jose. Reply if Prescott, his son, Magog Bush, that's George W. H. Bush, KGB communist, Chip Bolin, did save iCold LSD after Operation Midnight, modus tollens, I'll explain in a minute what that is, because Alcoholics Anonymous phrase and the RX drug on that stamp is the remedy to undo evil spell. David Frost to pay $1 million to IOU President Nixon for A1, which is top story. Jack Torrance. So what was it? Oh my God, what it says. And
well, the references to San Francisco and New York are references to CIA houses that they were doing LSD and mind control or behavior control experiments. And the guy's name George, it's escaping me now, but he was in charge of it.
George Hunter White.
I'm trying to look up his name. He comes up a lot in this book. A terrible. Yeah,
George
White, exactly.
George Hunter White and Ira.
Doing them in New York. Out to, in the Mission District, yes,
correct.
On
Telegraph
Hill.
Well,
Yeah.
that 901 Mission Street is the location of the San Francisco Chronicle, I believe still is. And I got to say, if I remember correctly, briefly, Dennis even thought for a while that Jack was somehow working with that location, because there was a time period where he was gone a lot in 1970s. So, here he's saying contact him at 901 Mission, but he's also going to UC Davis trying to get this occult evil spell reversed. So
that's what I want to kind of let everybody know at this point in time is that Jack had a dark room in his house from 1970 to at least 1972. Now, I know you and I, Harriette, discussed the possibility of him continuing to have kept that house past that point, though Dennis only recalls him having that home up until 1972 on Dobrin Way, where he had a dark room down in his basement, which was probably one of the few houses that had a basement to begin with. But it's fitting right on in with Jack because he's talking about San Jose. He's talking about a dark room. Dennis already had admitted way back in the beginning that Jack had a dark room, and that really did not have any bearing on the Zodiac case because it didn't pertain to photographs like it did in Black Dahlia. So to know that he had this dark room, Dennis had no way of knowing that that would actually fit in or be part of your solves. Yeah, so that brings me back. That brings me back to the date sequence that this letter is written June 26th of 1970. We know Jack had the home in San Jose with the dark room in it at that time, which would coincide with the time frame. But we don't know that Jack had that house in 1974. But he is definitely saying, come see me at the 280-101 area, which is the Santa Clara, San Jose area.
What he's also saying in here is the reason about the dark room is he says repetitively that he got carbon copies of Frank Olson's millions and millions of pages apparently on versions of microfilm. So he's trying to stop what's going on currently about the MK Ultra. And I think, what I'm going to go out on a limb and state that that's probably where they found a whole bunch of those files. Because Jack is constantly saying, and this is circa
he's the bomb. He's the information bomb.
Yeah.
Now, you also talked about 322 being a number for the Skull and Bones Society.
Yes. Yep. And this particular stamp is number 322. It came out. And then what confirmed my solve all the more is it's saying what I had just found out recently, that Skull and Bones George H.W. Bush was known from his time at, I think it was Yale,
right?
As Magog.
Wow. And so how that stuff just keeps coming up and almost as a confirmation. So now the last line says David Frost to pay $1 million to IOU President Nixon for A1 story.
That confirms the solve too.
Yeah, explain that to us.
Okay.
Who's David Frost?
Nixon is totally broke. He's just quit. And he's apparently heard from David Frost, a famous interviewer, talk show host guy.
Talk show host, yeah.
That he was to pay $1 million for the top of the line A1 story, which I got to say that Jack may be doing a version of extortion here. Like, hello, there's a whole bunch of things that Nixon can talk about. Cooperate, please, now. So... Anyway,
there's a famous interview of Frost and Nixon. They actually made a movie about it.
See?
Frost and Nixon.
And if I understand correctly, he did get paid $1 million. Nixon was definitely broke. By the time he got paid, he had to pay off a couple $100,000 to a lot of people. So he was broke, So
and then that brings us back to the Z32 solve, which you had additional solves to the Z32, which I didn't pick up on last time. Basically, what we had gotten the last time was expedite or forward to John Faggio, MK Ultra, CIA at Dow Inc. And that was Lauren Swearingham's solve that you then took. I showed you took his digraph system and then anagrammed 2 additional messages.
Well, this is actually Jack's digraph system that Lauren Swearingham figured out. And then I adjusted just a couple of sections, and I said, this actually, for me, makes more sense. But you go on about what you found out about Fazio.
Well, we'll get to that after we're done with your solves. So one of my questions is one of your solves has said expedite forward to John F. Kennedy, Attorney General, which you presume to be brother, documents respectfully in order, MK Ultra CIA at Dow Chemical Inc. Now, my only question about that is that this letter written in 1970, or if we're to believe that that's the time frame of it,
74. Keep going.
Well, even 74 couldn't go to JFK's AG because Bobby Kennedy's dead already.
No, it's the documents that are part of, because what they were doing, apparently what Jack is doing, trying to get involved with the CIA, MK Ultra, that Bobby Kennedy started, my God, with going after these people in the 1950s with somebody last name Little. That so there's a lot of things going on, communism and MK Ultra, Cold War. So he became the AG, but I think he's saying send a whole bunch of these documents or gather them up, because he had found out that there was some MK Ultra CIA, in theory, at Dow Chemical Inc.
Wow. Now, you also found one that said Jack WT of 7, CIA help. I had gotten cross or mad on MK Ultra. What does that one mean?
Oh my God, I think it's something 7, the secret 7.
Mandamus? Is it the Mandamus 7?
Yeah, Mandamus 7. Okay, I think that's it. So he's saying something about that, I think, but look what he's saying. I've gone mad. I'm on MK Ultra, and then he's saying how to help him, and he's at UC Davis. So have you
heard, Nolan, of the Mandamus 7?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's another thing to research. I get lost down all my rabbit holes, and I have lots of them.
This is taking you down to the rabbit hole, like tripping on mushrooms and LSD, and that's why I'm not comfortable with doing this version. I like to do it. I'm coming up with some amazing stuff just by anagramming. So,
and then your last message says, help Jack Terrence of 7 CIA after midnight go north to I-80 to WX crossing at I-50. This would lead you, like you said, directly on into South Lake Tahoe or the Paradise Hotel, which we believe that Jack has moved himself to by this time.
Yeah, something like that, but it's also very close to where UC Davis is, just within that vicinity. So
I'm going to say that the 50 and 80 split. Now, I don't know where it was actually that far back. I mean, I didn't come to Sacramento until 1991, but that split is approximately 7 to 8 miles. Would you say, Nolan, from Davis, the 50-80 split?
Yeah, 10 miles.
Yeah, maybe about 10 miles. So it could very well have been in a location along that strip at some point, and it is very close to Davis.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that brings us to the Fazio, which we've been talking about the phonetic spelling, in which case Lauren Swearingham had indicated that the expedite to John Fazio, CIA, MK Ultra, Dow Chemicals, could either be Fazio, Faggio, or Fazio, Faggio, or Fazio, Fazio. I was able to actually find 2 individuals named John Fazio. It looks like they were born and died at different times. They would have been alive, obviously, during this time. Both of them happened to be out of the New Jersey and Maryland area. Not that isn't a home run hit for, the anthrax stuff and everything else, but I couldn't find any good information on these individuals other than the fact that they lived and died. So there was nothing there for me to really pull up or have any information on. Now, the word Fazio is a completely different story. This one I came up with a John Fazio, who him and his brother Carl Fazio purchased a chain of grocery stores with the Costa brothers, Sam Costa, and I'm not recalling his brother's name at this point, but we'll come back to that. So basically, in Cleveland, Ohio, which is another thing that was brought to my attention, because we know that there are letters written to Cleveland, Ohio by the Zodiac. We know that that the plain dealer, which is something I have heavily discussed in regards to its promoting things like Robert Graysmith's book. So the plain dealer was one of those reviews that was in his book that helped to sell it so largely across the world. We've got the Ohio reference, and then we've got the Italians, which is exactly who we're about to talk about. So it says Cleveland, Ohio, during the 1960s and 1970s, the name Fazio's was synonymous with grocery shopping in the Northeast Ohio. The opening of a new store in Northeast Ohio was greeted with newspaper articles extolling the European flavors in Fazio's bakery departments, gourmet specialties from around the world, and a large produce department. At the height of his grocery store empire in 1969, John Fazio's chain encompassed 202 stores in Ohio, Kentucky, Chicago, Illinois, and Los Angeles, California. So here we're hammering down on some of these major areas. Another thing I found out about this is that eventually when everything went south for this man, and we're going to talk about why, he to me looks like a perfect mob made man. And we'll talk about why I think that as we go through this. But his California stores were eventually sold to the owners of Albertsons, and that's how we got Albertsons in California. I thought that was interesting. I remember Albertsons. I haven't seen one in probably 20, 30 years, but I remember having shopped at them with my parents.
They still have Albertsons in Bakersfield. I was down there recently, and there's an Albertsons.
Right. But they've pretty much erased them all from the Northern California area.
Yeah, I don't see them around here.
What I could find in 2023 on Fisher Foods is that they still had 2 convenient locations. Now, they had 202 stores at the height of his career. He was expanding into Stop and Shop supermarkets, into convenience stores. So here's that relation back to the Zodiac in regards to picking up kids or victims from convenience stores. The payphone booth, which we just talked about, the freaking, which was very interesting. It says the Fazio brothers, Carl and John, advertised another new store on May 21st, 1964. This one was in Parma Heights. This here's a picture of Mr. Fazio and his first wife in the house that they purchased called Roundwood Manor in the early 60s. It says John Fazio was born in Cleveland, the youngest of 3 children. He worked on his father's fruit car, then later dropped out of Alexander Hamilton High School to work in his father's small grocery store along with his brother Carl. Now, grocery stores were typically owned by the mob back then. You know, that's where they would launder money. That's where they would do all kinds of things. But John, Carl, and their father Charles opened their first store called Fazio's in the Cedarly district of Cleveland Heights in the 1930s. John fell for Anita, a Woolworths cashier, and they married in 1941 despite the opposition from both families. His family didn't like her because she wasn't Italian, and her family had the opposite objection about John, said, I'm thinking a granddaughter or a daughter, but John, Carl, and other investors purchased the then faltering Fisher food chain in 1965, and the sale expanded the company to 120 stores. That took a lot of money to do. So somebody coming from one menial grocery store to purchasing a chain of 120. Granted, it is done with the Costa partners, but again, those guys are also Italian descent. So he did serve in World War II. By 1960, the business had grown to include Fazio's and Stop and Shop stores run by both John and Carl. John Fazio frequented his stores. He liked to keep up his customer service, and that kind of reminds me of the good old boy, right? The good old Italian mob wanting to save face, to make nice, to play pretty, and get out there and schmooze people. It's just some things about this just kind of tickled me. I do see that he lived pretty much a lavish lifestyle based on what he was doing, you know, going on vacation, snowmobiling, pool table in the house, badminton on the backyard. Like, he was definitely living the life. Let's see what here. So John Fazio's fortune slipped in the 1970s when he narrowly escaped prison, it says, for his role in a price fixing case involving Fisher Foods, Pick and Pay, and Stop and Shop. So now we have the price fixing that's going on. Now that takes me back to the mob once again. See, Fazio was forced to take an early retirement at Fisher's president and CEO in May of 1979 rather than fight the board of directors. What would you have had to have done so bad that they would force you into retirement?
He became honest.
or his face of the company was jeopardized by the dirty deeds of the company, and he was the fall guy for that. But his brother just took over. So I don't understand why he was forced to retire if brother Carl's just going to pick up where he left off. This particular picture right here was accompanied in an article where the local grocers were being asked to explain why food prices in Cleveland exceeded those of Chicago and Los Angeles in 1976. And John Fazio was actually an interviewee in regards to this mess, but isn't later charged with these crimes until in the 80s. Which really cracks me up. So who else but the person who's talking about price fixing or was doing price fixing ends up being the interview for the plain dealer?
He's a snappy dresser. It's a nice
he is. Right? Watch us go here because it gets better. Here he is with one of the Society National Bank representatives where they are portraying the bank representative as a shopper while Mr. Fazio is actually showing how they're using electronic machines to check out. And their intentions at this point is to, they're planning a partnership that would add limited banking services to dozens of Fazio supermarkets later that year. That's in 1978. I don't remember when we got like Wells Fargo in our Safeways or in our Bel Airs, or when we actually had access to banking services inside of a grocery store, because it certainly wasn't in 1978. That's a lot of money, a lot of big connections, a lot of things that are going on.
Technology, the wire services, so much. Yeah.
So it says a non-compete clause barred him from opening more grocery stores in the Cleveland area for several years, but later he and wife Terry, a former Fisher Foods personnel director, opened Jotes, a food and drug store in Willowick in 1982. The company continued running it after moving to Dallas in the 1980s. John and Terry opened 3 deep discount stores that were the forerunners of Sam's Club and Costco, you guys. Like, that's just, yeah. He remained active in that business until 2000 when he retired at age 80. Let's see. Over that. So here's another Stop and Shop and grand opening and the huge press that it's receiving. Here's one of his first indictments. Fisher's California chain, which at 46 stores was still relatively small, was fined $5,000 in Los Angeles. For 15 charges of false advertising and 1 charge of mislabeling in July 1977. Fisher pleaded no contest, claiming that the infractions all stemmed from oversights, not deliberate deception. Okay. This, however, would not be the last time the grocery chain and its officials would be brought to court for charges such as these. Let's see, the image from grand opening. Second infraction. In the fall of 1981, price fixing charges were brought against Fisher, contending that the company collaborated with First National Supermarkets, Inc., parent of Pick and Pay stores, and the Association of Stop and Shop stores to price goods below cost and thereby force others out of business. The company was slapped with 5 multi-million-dollar lawsuits from individuals and companies. Later that same year, a second antitrust suit was brought against Fisher and others by 2 nursing homes and a restaurant for fixing wholesale prices. Both cases enumerated infractions in the late 1970s. The first case resulted in the largest consumer class action settlement of a price fixing case in U.S. history. 1 million households in 7 northeast Ohio counties received $20 in grocery coupons. John Fazio, who was president and CEO of Fisher Foods when the violations occurred, was sentenced to 5 years of probation beginning in 1982, but his sentence was commuted in 1984. That's mob.
Reagan, yeah, I'm hearing a lot. I mean, he had great speech writers and he had some great time periods, but something's wrong because I'm hearing a lot of bad things about Reagan.
Well, they did say let me see real quick if I can get this out. He says his Janice Fazio said she remembers that when there were long lines at her father's favorite Italian restaurant, a maitre d' would appear and usher the family past waiting customers to a special table. She said, "I'm thinking my dad is a king. Mob."
Yeah.
All right, you guys, we are down to the last few seconds. I need to say goodbye to everybody. We will pick this up where we left off next week and continue on with these solves from Harriette. Thank you so much, Nolan and Harriette, for being here. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, stay safe. Let's not get killed by the CIA. Okay. I'm just a code breaker, guys.
We're doing next week on the 10th? The 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
If it's not, I'll check with Juan and I'll let you guys know. I'm going to have to do some pre-records anyways. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you.